A contract signed in tears. The fluorescent lights in the law office buzzed overhead like angry insects as Natalie Foster stared at the document that would change everything. Her hands shook as she held the expensive pen that Raymond Pierce, the attorney, had placed before her. The black ink felt heavy, like it carried the weight of all her choices and all her desperation. "Miss Foster, I need to confirm you understand all the terms before you sign," Raymond said. His voice, professionally neutral, behind wire-rimmed glasses. He was probably in his 50s, with silver hair and the kind of calm demeanor that came from handling delicate situations for wealthy clients. Natalie swallowed hard and nodded. "I understand, but did she really? Could anyone truly understand what it meant to marry a complete stranger for money?" The contract laid it out in clear legal language. 2 years of marriage to Jason Bennett, founder and CEO of Bennett Technologies. In exchange, she would receive $800,000 immediately to cover her mother's kidney transplant and ongoing medical care, plus $60,000 monthly for living expenses. The terms were specific and cold. Separate bedrooms. Public appearances as needed. No romantic expectations. Complete discretion. Freedom to end the arrangement after 2 years, with a final payment of $1.2 million. "My mother is dying," Natalie said quietly, more to herself than to Raymond. "Stage 4 kidney failure. The transplant list is years long. Private treatment is her only chance." Raymond's expression softened slightly. Mr. Bennett chose this arrangement carefully. His father's will requires him to be married to take full control of Bennett Technologies. He prefers a clear business agreement to the complications of a traditional relationship. Natalie looked at the small photograph clipped to the file. Jason Bennett stared back at her from what looked like a magazine cover. Dark hair styled perfectly, sharp jawline, intense blue eyes that seemed to look through the camera. He wore a tailored suit that probably cost more than her yearly teaching salary. Everything about him screamed wealth, power, and a world completely foreign to her own. She taught art at Jefferson High School in Queens. Her apartment was a tiny one-bedroom where she'd lived with her mother for 3 years. Ever since her mom got sick and could no longer work as a seamstress, they survived on Natalie's modest salary and whatever savings they could scrape together, until 6 months ago, when the medical bills started piling up faster than she could count. "Where do I sign?" Natalie asked, pushing aside the fear knotting in her stomach. Raymond pointed to 5 different places. Each signature felt like giving away a piece of herself. When she finished, he slid another document across the desk. "This is a prenuptial agreement. It protects both parties. You're entitled to nothing beyond what's specified in the contract. No claims on his assets, no spousal support beyond the agreed terms." Of course, Natalie signed that too. What choice did she have? Her mother had weeks, maybe days, without treatment. "Mr. Bennett will meet you at City Hall tomorrow at 2 o'clock for the civil ceremony," Raymond explained. Gathering the signed documents into a leather folder, "I'll be there as a witness, along with my assistant. The ceremony is brief and private. Afterward, you'll move into his penthouse. I'll have your payment transferred to your account tonight." The coldest wedding day, Natalie stood outside City Hall wearing the only dress appropriate for a wedding that she owned. A simple, cream-colored sundress she'd bought 3 years ago for a friend's celebration. She'd paired it with flat sandals because she couldn't afford new shoes, and heels made her nervous anyway. No bouquet. No family. Her mother was already admitted to the hospital, beginning pre-surgery preparations now that payment was guaranteed. A black town car pulled up exactly at 2 o'clock. The driver opened the rear door, and Jason Bennett stepped out in person. He was even more striking than his photographs. Tall, easily, over 6 feet, with broad shoulders filling out a navy suit perfectly. His dark hair was slightly wind-houseled, making him look almost approachable. Almost. But his eyes, those piercing blue eyes, assessed her with the same cool calculation she'd seen in the photo. "Natalie Foster," he said, extending his hand. His voice was deep, controlled. "Jason Bennett. Thank you for being punctual." She shook his hand, noting its warmth despite his cold greeting. "Thank you for doing this. It's a business arrangement that benefits us both." Salute. He gestured toward the building. "Shall we?" The ceremony lasted exactly 12 minutes. They stood before a city clerk who recited the standard vows with practiced efficiency. Jason said, "I do," like he was confirming a conference call. Natalie's voice trembled when she repeated the words, making them sound more like a question than a promise. "You may kiss the bride," the clerk announced without enthusiasm. Jason leaned in and pressed his lips to her cheek quickly, professionally. No emotion, no warmth. Just a technical requirement checked off the list. "Congratulations," Raymond said, clapping once. "You're now legally married." Legally married. The words felt surreal. Natalie looked at the simple gold band now on her finger. Jason wore a matching one. They looked like symbols of love but felt like shackles. The golden cage. The penthouse occupied the entire top floor of a luxury building in Manhattan, with views that seemed to stretch forever. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Central Park on one side and the city skyline on the other. The interior was all modern design, clean lines, expensive furniture, and shades of gray and white. Everything looked like it belonged in an architecture magazine. Nothing looked lived in or personal. "Your room is down this hall," Jason said, leading her through the vast space. "Private bathroom, walk-in closet. I've arranged for a stylist to update your wardrobe tomorrow. You'll need appropriate clothing for the events we'll attend." Of course, she was part of his image now. The bedroom he showed her was larger than her entire former apartment. A massive bed with white linens, abstract art on the walls, and those same spectacular views. Beautiful and empty. "My room is on the opposite side of the penthouse," Jason continued. "I work long hours, usually leaving by 7 and returning around 9 or 10. Sometimes later, we'll coordinate schedules through my assistant Monica for any public appearances." Natalie turned to face him. "Do we ever actually talk? Or is this entire marriage conducted through assistants and schedules?" For the first time, something flickered in his expression. "Surprise, maybe? What would you like to talk about?" "I don't know. Normal things? How was your day? What do you like to do? Anything that makes us seem like actual people who know each other." Jason studied her for a long moment. "I'm not good at small talk or personal conversations. I built a company from nothing, and maintaining it requires constant focus. This arrangement works because it's clear and uncomplicated." "Uncomplicated," Natalie repeated. "Right. Your mother's surgery is scheduled for day after tomorrow," Jason said, his tone softening slightly. "I've arranged for the best surgical team in the country. She'll have a private suite for recovery." Despite everything, despite the coldness and the strange situation, Natalie felt tears burning her eyes. "Thank you, truly. She's all I have." "I understand what it's like to protect family," Jason said quietly. Then he seemed to catch himself, as if he'd revealed too much. "I'll let you settle in. If you need anything, there's an intercom system. Press 9 for the concierge." He left, and Natalie sank onto the edge of the enormous bed. Through the windows, the city sparkled with a million lights. Somewhere out there, her mother was preparing for surgery that would save her life. That was worth everything, wasn't it? Worth living in this beautiful prison? Worth being married to a stranger who treated her like a business? Acquisition? She pulled out her phone and opened the text from the hospital. Her mother had sent a simple message. "Thank you, sweetheart. I love you. Please don't sacrifice too much for me." Too late, Mom, Natalie thought. She'd already sacrificed the dream of marrying for love, of building a life with someone who actually wanted her. But as she looked at the gold band on her finger, she made herself a promise. This was temporary. 2 years. She would survive it, take care of her mother, then reclaim her life. What Natalie didn't know was that across the penthouse, Jason sat in his home office staring at his own wedding band. He told himself it meant nothing, just another tool for achieving his goals. But something about the vulnerability in Natalie's eyes, the way her voice shook during the vows, the fact that she'd agreed to this desperate arrangement out of pure love for her mother, had unsettled him more than he wanted to admit. For a man who controlled everything through careful planning and emotional distance, Natalie Foster, now Natalie Bennett, represented something he hadn't anticipated, a variable he couldn't quite calculate. And that terrified him more than any hostile takeover or business crisis ever had. When strangers share a home 3 weeks into their arrangement, Natalie had established a routine that kept her world and Jason's from colliding too often. She woke early, made coffee in the enormous kitchen that looked barely used, and spent mornings at the hospital with her mother, who was recovering beautifully from the transplant. Afternoons, she explored the city or read in the penthouse library, a room filled with books that looked untouched. Evenings, she painted in her bedroom, losing herself in colors and canvas the way she always had when life felt overwhelming. Jason kept his promise about long work hours. Some days, Natalie barely saw him except in passing. He'd nod politely, ask how her mother was doing in that formal tone, and disappear into his office or leave for another meeting. They were roommates at best, strangers bound by legal documents, but tonight was different. Tonight was their first public appearance as a married couple. The gala starts at 8. Monica, Jason's assistant, had explained that morning during a phone call. It's the annual Tech Innovation Awards. Jason is receiving recognition for Bennett Technologies' contributions to sustainable energy solutions. Every major publication will be there. You'll need to look the part. Look the part. Natalie stared at herself in the full-length mirror, barely recognizing the woman reflected back. The stylist Jason hired had transformed her. A midnight blue gown hugged her figure elegantly, with delicate beading that caught the light. Her usually simple brown hair was styled in soft waves that fell past her shoulders. Professional makeup highlighted features she'd never paid much attention to. She looked like she belonged in Jason's world. But inside, she still felt like the art teacher from Queens playing dress-up. A knock on her bedroom door made her jump. "Come in." Shh. Jason entered and stopped mid-stride. For several seconds he just stared, his usual composed expression faltering. "You look beautiful," he said finally, and there was something in his voice that sounded almost genuine. "Thank you," Natalie replied, feeling heat rise to her cheeks. "You clean up pretty well yourself." He wore a tailored black tuxedo that probably cost more than her car used to be worth. His dark hair was perfectly styled, and those blue eyes seemed even more intense against the formal attire. "I got you something," Jason said, pulling a long velvet box from his jacket pocket. "You'll need jewelry for tonight." He opened it to reveal a stunning diamond necklace with matching earrings. The stones caught the light like captured stars. "Jason, this is too much," Natalie protested. "It's necessary for appearances." His tone turned businesslike again. "In my world, people notice details. They'll judge you based on what you wear, how you present yourself. This isn't a gift. It's part of the arrangement." So the words stung more than they should have. Of course, nothing was personal. Nothing was real. "Let me help you," Jason said when she struggled with the necklace clasp. He stepped behind her, and she felt his fingers brush against the back of her neck as he fastened the jewelry. His touch was surprisingly gentle, and she caught his reflection in the mirror. His expression focused and unreadable. "There," he said softly. "Perfect." The performance begins. The gala was held at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. The grand hall transformed into an elegant venue with towering floral arrangements and glittering chandeliers. Natalie held Jason's arm as they entered, camera flashes exploding like fireworks around them. "Mr. Bennett, congratulations on your marriage," a reporter called out. "How did you two meet?" Jason smiled, and Natalie was struck by how natural it looked. "Through mutual friends at an art gallery opening." Natalie was critiquing my taste in modern art, and I was immediately intrigued. The story flowed smoothly, obviously rehearsed. But when Jason looked at her while telling it, something in his eyes made it feel almost true. Inside, the room buzzed with the energy of wealth and power. Tech moguls, investors, celebrities, and politicians mingled beneath priceless artwork. Natalie recognized faces from magazine covers and news broadcasts. "Stay close," Jason murmured as they navigated through the crowd. "I'll introduce you to the important people." For the next hour, Natalie smiled until her face ached. Shaking hands with strangers who assessed her with barely concealed curiosity, she was the mystery woman who'd captured the perpetual bachelor Jason Bennett. Everyone wanted to know her story. "You seem genuinely happy," observed Patricia Hamilton, a silver-haired woman who owned half the real estate in Manhattan. That's refreshing. So many marriages in our circles are purely strategic. The irony wasn't lost on Natalie. When you find the right person, happiness comes naturally, she replied, the lie tasting bitter. Jason has certainly changed since meeting you, Patricia continued. He's actually smiling tonight. Usually he treats these events like business meetings. Natalie glanced at Jason across the room, deep in conversation with a group of investors. As if sensing her gaze, he looked up and their eyes met. He excused himself and made his way back to her. Bored yet? He asked with a slight smirk. Only mildly, Natalie admitted. How many more hours of this? At least 3. Think you can survive? I survived teaching 30 teenagers about abstract expressionism. I can handle fancy people and small talk. Jason laughed, a genuine sound that surprised them both. I'd actually pay to see you teach. You must have infinite patience. You have no idea, Natalie said. Last year, a student asked me why we had to learn about dead artists when we could just look at memes online. What did you tell him? That memes are modern art, and talked about how cultural commentary evolves through different mediums. He ended up doing his final project on internet culture as contemporary expression. Jason studied her with new interest. You actually care about reaching them, right, of course. They're people, not just students. Everyone has creativity inside them. Sometimes they just need someone to help them find it. Before Jason could respond, a man in an expensive suit approached with 2 champagne flutes. Bennett, congratulations on the award tonight. And this must be your bride. Natalie, this is Richard Caldwell, Jason introduced. He runs Caldwell Investments. Richard's handshake was too firm, his smile too wide. Lovely to meet you. I must say, Jason, you've surprised us all. We had bets going on whether you'd ever settle down. People change, Jason said evenly. Indeed. Richard's eyes lingered on Natalie in a way that made her uncomfortable. Your wife is quite stunning. Where did you say you found her? Found her. Like she was a lost object. Found each other, Natalie said coolly. And I'm standing right here, so you can address me directly. Richard blinked, taken aback. Jason's lips twitched with suppressed amusement. My apologies, Richard recovered. I meant no offense. Of course not, Natalie replied sweetly. Just like I'm sure you don't mean to imply that women are possessions to be found rather than people, who make their own choices. An awkward silence fell. Then Jason's hand settled on the small of Natalie's back, warm and supportive. If you'll excuse us, Richard, Jason said. I see someone we need to speak with. He guided Natalie away, and once they were out of earshot, he leaned close. That was incredible. Was it too much? I didn't mean to embarrass you. Embarrass me? You defended yourself with perfect grace while putting an arrogant jerk in his place? That's exactly what these people need sometimes. Approval in his voice made something flutter in Natalie's chest. She reminded herself it didn't mean anything. He was just pleased she played her part well, the moment everything changed later. After Jason received his award and gave an eloquent speech about innovation and responsibility, they found themselves on one of the museum's balconies. The night air was cool, offering relief from the crowded ballroom. You did well tonight, Jason said, loosening his bow tie. I know these events are exhausting. Wasn't so bad, Natalie admitted. Some of the conversations were actually interesting. You surprised people. They expected someone quieter, more typical. What's typical? Jason shrugged. Most people in this world are either trying to climb higher or afraid of falling. You don't seem motivated by either. I'm just trying to get through 2 years without losing myself, Natalie said before she could stop herself. The honesty hung between them. Jason turned to face her fully, his expression unreadable in the dim light. Do you hate this? Being married to me? The question caught her off guard. I don't hate you, Jason. I barely know you. Exactly. We're strangers playing house, isn't that what you wanted? A business arrangement with no complications. Yes, Jason said slowly. That's what I wanted. What I thought I wanted, and now. He looked out over the city, the lights spreading like a blanket of stars. Now I'm not sure. You're not what I expected, Natalie. What did you expect? Someone more interested in the money than anything else? Someone who'd treat this like an extended vacation with a good paycheck. He turned back to her. But you visit your mother every day. You paint in your room at night. I hear you sometimes, humming while you work. You read philosophy and poetry. You stand up to people like Richard without flinching. You're real in a way most people in my world aren't. Natalie's heart was beating too fast. Jason. I don't know how to do this, he continued. How to have someone in my space, in my life? I've kept everyone at a distance for so long. It's safer that way. Safer from what? From disappointment. From being used? My father built Bennett Technologies from nothing, and people circled him constantly, wanting pieces of his success. When he died 2 years ago, it got worse. Everyone wanted something from me. Access, money, connections, status. No one just wanted me. The vulnerability in his voice cracked something inside Natalie's chest. She saw him differently now, not as the cold billionaire from the contract, but as someone who'd built walls to protect himself from a world that saw him as a commodity. Is that why you chose a contract marriage? She asked gently, because it was honest about what it was. At least with a contract, I know the terms. No one pretends it's something it's not. But Jason, that also means you never give anyone a chance to surprise you. He studied her face for a long moment. You surprised me tonight. When you stood up to Richard, I felt proud. Actually proud, like you were really my wife and I was lucky to have you. We are really married, Natalie pointed out. You know what I mean? It felt real for a moment, and that scares me. It scares me too, Natalie admitted. I agreed to this arrangement because I had no choice. But living with you, seeing glimpses of who you actually are, it's harder than I expected to keep it purely business. They stood close now. Close enough that Natalie could see the flecks of darker blue in his eyes. Could feel the warmth radiating from him. What do we do? Jason asked quietly. I don't know. Maybe we just take it one day at a time. Stop trying so hard to keep everything separate and just see what happens. That's terrifying. Most worthwhile things are. Jason reached up and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers lingering against her cheek. You're very wise for someone so young. I'm not that young. I'm 28 years younger than me. Sometimes you seem older, more grounded. Hardship does that, Natalie said. Watching your mother slowly die tends to mature you fast. I'm sorry you went through that. That you're still going through it? She's getting better now. Because of you. Because of our arrangement, Jason corrected. No, Natalie said firmly. Because of you. You could have chosen anyone for this contract. But you chose me, and you're giving my mother the best care possible. That means something. They might have kissed then. The moment was charged with possibility, with the awareness that their carefully constructed boundaries were crumbling. But voices from inside the ballroom interrupted them, and Jason stepped back, the professional mask sliding into place. We should get back, he said. People will notice we're missing. Late-night revelations, they didn't speak much during the drive home, but something had shifted between them. The silence felt comfortable rather than awkward, filled with unspoken thoughts rather than empty space. Back at the penthouse, Natalie kicked off her heels with relief and unclasped the diamond necklace. Jason had disappeared into his office, and she assumed he'd work for a few more hours as usual, but sleep wouldn't come. Her mind replayed the evening, especially those moments on the balcony when Jason had let his guard down. She thought about what he'd said, about feeling proud when she stood up to Richard, about being scared of things feeling real. Around midnight, she gave up on sleep and headed to the kitchen for tea. She found Jason already there, still in his tuxedo pants and dress shirt, though he'd abandoned the jacket and tie. He stood at the counter with a glass of whiskey, staring out the window at the city below. Can't sleep either, Natalie asked. He turned, surprise flashing across his face. She'd changed into comfortable pajama pants and an oversized sweater. Her face scrubbed clean of makeup, hair pulled into a messy bun, the opposite of the polished woman from the gala. Too much on my mind, Jason admitted. Want to talk about it? He hesitated, then gestured to the living room. Sure. Why not? They settled on opposite ends of the large sectional sofa. Natalie curling her legs under her, Jason leaning back with his whiskey. There's a hostile takeover attempt brewing, Jason said. Caldwell Investments actually. Richard is making a play for controlling shares of Bennett Technologies. That's why he was so interested in us tonight, Natalie realized. He was sizing up the situation. Exactly. My father's will protects me as long as I'm married and actively running the company. But if Richard can prove the marriage is fake, he could challenge my position. Cold dread filled Natalie's stomach. Can he do that? He can try, and he has resources to dig deep. Jason took a drink, which means we need to be more convincing as a couple. No more separate lives under the same roof. What are you suggesting? I don't know. Spend more time together. Actually get to know each other. Make it believable that we're in love. Fake being in love, Natalie said slowly. Yes, Jason, that's going to be complicated. I know. Pretending to have feelings can become confusing. Lines blur. I know that too, Jason said, meeting her eyes. But I don't have a choice. If I lose the company, everything my father built dies with it. Hundreds of employees lose their jobs. The sustainable energy projects we're developing get shelved. And honestly, I lose the only thing that gives my life purpose. The desperation in his voice touched something deep in Natalie's heart. She understood what it meant to fight for something bigger than yourself. Okay, she said. We'll make it convincing. You'll do this? Even though it complicates everything? We're already in this together. Might as well commit fully. Jason set down his glass and moved closer to her on the couch. Thank you. I mean it. But Jason, we need to set some ground rules. Like what? If either of us starts developing real feelings, we need to be honest about it. This only works if we're truthful with each other. Agreed. And we respect boundaries. Just because we're pretending in public doesn't mean you have access to all of me. Jason's expression turned serious. Natalie, I would never presume or pressure you into anything you're not comfortable with. This arrangement, real or fake, is based on mutual respect. Good, then we have a deal. She extended her hand for a shake. But Jason took it and brought it to his lips instead, pressing a soft kiss to her knuckles. To our improved arrangement, the gesture sent electricity through her arm, and Natalie knew immediately that this new plan was dangerous. How was she supposed to fake being in love with a man who made her heart race with a simple kiss on the hand? A man who was starting to show her glimpses of depth and vulnerability beneath his controlled exterior? I should get some sleep, she said, pulling her hand back gently. Big day tomorrow. What's tomorrow? I'm taking my mother to her follow-up appointment. Want to come? Jason looked surprised. You want me to meet your mother? If we're going to convince people we're really married, probably a good idea for you to actually know my family. Besides, she keeps asking about you. What does she know about our arrangement? Nothing, Natalie said firmly. She thinks we fell in love and got married quickly. She's a romantic. I couldn't tell her the truth, so I need to convince your mother I'm madly in love with you. I think you can handle it. A slow smile spread across Jason's face, and it transformed him completely. He looked younger, more boyish, genuinely happy. I'll do my best, as Natalie headed back to her room. She couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just agreed to something far more dangerous than the original contract. Playing at love with Jason Bennett might be the biggest risk she'd ever taken. Because somewhere between the cold transaction and tonight's surprising warmth, the lines were already starting to blur, and part of her was terrified that she wanted them to. Meeting Mom Helen Foster sat in the hospital courtyard garden, looking healthier than Natalie had seen her in years. Color had returned to her cheeks, and her eyes sparkled with vitality that the illness had stolen. The successful transplant had given her a second chance at life, and she was embracing it with characteristic optimism. There's my baby girl, Helen said, as Natalie approached with Jason. Then her eyes widened. And this must be the famous husband I've heard so much about but haven't met yet. Mom, this is Jason, Natalie said, feeling nervous for reasons she couldn't quite name. Jason, my mother, Helen. Jason stepped forward with genuine warmth, taking Helen's hand gently. Mrs. Foster, it's wonderful to finally meet you. I apologize for not visiting sooner. Work has been demanding. Call me Helen, please. And I understand completely. Natalie tells me you're changing the world with sustainable energy. Helen's eyes were sharp, despite her friendly tone, assessing this man who'd swept her daughter into marriage so quickly. Sit, both of you. Tell me how married life is treating you. They sat on either side of Helen, on the garden bench. Jason naturally put his arm along the back of the seat behind Natalie, close but not quite touching, a gesture that suggested intimacy without presuming. It's an adjustment, Natalie admitted. Going from my tiny apartment to Jason's penthouse. Different worlds, but you're happy? Helen asked, her mother's intuition searching for truth beneath the surface. Before Natalie could answer, Jason spoke. Your daughter amazes me every day, he said, and the sincerity in his voice caught Natalie off guard. She's brilliant, compassionate, and refuses to let my world change who she is. I'm the lucky one. Helen's expression softened. Natalie has always known her own mind. Even as a little girl, she'd defend anyone she saw being treated unfairly. Got into trouble more than once for speaking up. I believe it, Jason said with a smile. She put a Sylvester in his place at a gala last night. It was impressive. What did he do? Helen asked. Treated me like an object rather than a person, Natalie explained. I may have been a bit sharp in my response, Helen said firmly. Never let anyone diminish you, sweetheart. I raised you better than that. I spent an hour in the garden, and Natalie watched something unexpected happen. Jason genuinely connected with her mother. He asked about her recovery, her hobbies before she got sick, her dreams for the future. He listened intently when Helen talked about her years as a seamstress, creating custom dresses for brides. He even asked intelligent questions about fabric and design that showed real interest. You know, Helen said as they prepared to leave, I worried when Natalie told me you two married so quickly. I thought maybe she was rushing into something because of me, because of guilt about the medical bills. Natalie's breath caught. Her mother was far too perceptive. But watching you together, Helen continued, I see how you look at each other. That's real. You can't fake the way Jason's whole face changes when you smile, Natalie. And honey, you touch him like you're grounding yourself, like he's become your anchor. That's love, even if it's new love. After they left the hospital, Jason and Natalie walked through Central Park in silence for several blocks. Your mother is wonderful, Jason finally said. I see where you get your strength. She's everything to me, Natalie replied. Watching her nearly die, feeling helpless to save her, it was the worst period of my life. I can't imagine. I lost my father 2 years ago to a heart attack. Sudden, unexpected. One day he was running the company, the next he was gone. Jason's voice carried old pain, but at least I had the resources to get him the best care in those final hours. You didn't have that option, and you had to watch her suffer, knowing treatment existed but was out of reach. It's a terrible feeling, being poor when someone you love is dying. Like the universe decided your love isn't worth as much because you don't have money. Jason stopped walking and turned to face her. Your love is worth everything, Natalie. What you did, agreeing to marry a stranger to save her, that's the purest form of love I've ever witnessed. You made it possible. We made it possible together. And your mother was right about something. What? The way I look at you. She sees something I've been trying to deny. Natalie's heart thundered in her chest. Jason, I'm falling for you, he said quietly. I don't know when it started. Maybe when you stood up to Richard. Maybe when you told me you heard me humming while painting. Maybe it was just inevitable from the moment you walked into that law office willing to sacrifice everything for your mother. But it's happening and I don't know how to stop it. Why would you want to stop it? Because it wasn't part of the plan. Because I don't know how to do this, how to be vulnerable with someone. Because you agreed to a business arrangement, not a real relationship. And I don't want to pressure you into something you don't want. Natalie reached up and touched his face, her palm against his cheek. What if I'm falling too? Jason's eyes searched hers. Are you? I think I started falling the night of the gala, when you let me see past your walls. When you admitted you were scared, I kept telling myself it was just gratitude or proximity or the strangeness of the situation. But Jason, when you talk, I want to listen. When you smile, really smile, I feel it in my chest. When you're gone all day, the penthouse feels empty. That's not nothing. But you're innocent, Jason said, his voice rough. You told me you've never been with anyone? This is all new for you. How did you know that? The night of the gala, when Richard made you uncomfortable, your reaction was pure. Not calculated or worldly. Just genuine discomfort from someone not used to that kind of attention. He paused. Am I wrong? Natalie felt heat flood her cheeks. No, you're right. I've dated, but never seriously. My mother's illness, my teaching, they took all my time and energy. And honestly, I never felt strongly enough about anyone to take that step. And now I'm terrified because I'm starting to feel strongly about you, and I don't know if it's real or just circumstance. How do I know if what I'm feeling is genuine when it started from a contract? Jason pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her. Right there in the middle of Central Park, with joggers and tourists passing by, he held her like she was precious. I don't know either, he admitted, but I know I don't want to pretend anymore. I don't want this to be fake. Natalie pulled back enough to look up at him. What are you saying? I'm saying forget the contract. Forget the arrangement. Let's try this for real. The contract burns back at the penthouse. Jason went straight to his office safe. Natalie followed, her heart pounding with uncertainty and hope tangled together. He pulled out the thick contract they'd both signed. The document that defined their entire relationship in legal terms. Pages and pages of clauses, stipulations, payment schedules, and exit terms. Their marriage reduced to business language. Jason, what are you doing? He carried the contract to the living room fireplace, the one decorative feature that actually functioned. Something I should have done weeks ago. Can't just destroy a legal contract. Watch me. He knelt and struck a match, holding the flame to the corner of the document. The paper caught immediately, edges curling and blackening as fire consumed the words that had bound them. Natalie watched in shock as their entire arrangement turned to ash. Jason, this is crazy. We need that. What about your company? What about Richard's takeover attempt? I'll fight him with the truth. That I'm married to an incredible woman who I'm falling in love with. No more pretending. No more contracts. He stood and faced her, his blue eyes intense. I'm tearing up our agreement because I don't want you to stay out of obligation. I want you to stay because you choose me, because you want this too. But the money, the payments we agreed on, keep what you've received. I'll make sure your mother's care continues for life, not because of a contract, but because I care about you and the people you love. If you choose to leave, you won't owe me anything. You're giving me a choice, Natalie said slowly, understanding dawning. A real choice. Yes, stay with me because you want to build something real. Or leave, free and clear, with enough money to start whatever life you want. Jason stepped closer. But I'm hoping you'll choose to stay. Tears filled Natalie's eyes. You're really willing to risk everything? The company, your father's legacy? I'm willing to risk it for a chance at something genuine. My father built that company, yes. But he also told me once that business success means nothing if you're alone at the end. I didn't understand then. I do now. When did he tell you that? A week before he died? We were having dinner and he asked me if I was happy. I said I was successful. He said those weren't the same thing. Jason's voice grew thick with emotion. He told me he hoped I'd find what he and my mother had before she passed. Real partnership, real love. I brushed it off because I'd seen too many relationships fall apart. But Natalie, what we have, what we could have, maybe this is what he meant. Natalie thought about the past weeks, about the moments that had accumulated like drops filling a bucket. Jason bringing her coffee in the morning without being asked. The way he listened when she talked about art. How he'd held her hand at her mother's bedside when Helen was in pain. The late-night conversations that went deeper than surface pleasantries. The growing comfort between them that felt like home. I'm scared, she admitted. I've never done this before. Any of this. And you're so experienced, so worldly. What if I'm not enough? Jason cupped her face in his hands. You're everything. And I'm scared too. I've spent years protecting myself, keeping people at a distance. Opening up to you terrifies me, because you have the power to hurt me in ways no business rival ever could. I would never hurt you intentionally. I know. That's why I'm willing to risk it. They stood there, the fireplace crackling behind them, the ashes of their contract settling into silence. Two people on the edge of something profound and uncertain. "I choose to stay," Natalie whispered. "I choose you. I choose us, whatever that becomes." Jason kissed her then, really kissed her. Not the polite peck from their wedding day, not the staged affection at the gala. This was real, deep, full of all the feelings they'd been holding back. Natalie melted into him, her hands sliding up to his shoulders, anchoring herself as the world tilted. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Jason pressed his forehead to hers. "I love you, Natalie. I don't know when it happened, but I do, completely." "I love you too," she said, and the words felt right, felt true. "This is crazy, isn't it? We've known each other for less than 2 months. Sometimes you just know. My parents knew after 3 weeks. My father always said, when you find the right person, time becomes irrelevant. Will you tell me about them?" "Your parents?" Jason smiled. "Come on." He led her to his bedroom, the space she'd never entered. It was masculine, but warm, with photographs on the dresser she hadn't expected. He picked up one showing a younger Jason with an elegant couple, all three laughing at something outside the frame. "My parents on my 21st birthday," he explained. "My mom died of cancer when I was 23. My father never remarried, said she was his person, and there wouldn't be another. I thought that was romantic but impractical. Now I understand. You think I'm your person? I think you might be. I want the chance to find out." Building something real over the following weeks, they rebuilt their relationship from the ground up, this time on a foundation of choice rather than contract. They had dinner together every night, talking for hours about everything and nothing. Jason cut back his work hours, discovering that the company functioned fine without him being present every moment. Natalie enrolled in a graduate program for art therapy, planning to eventually work with children in hospitals. They went on actual dates, discovering the city together. Museums where Jason learned to see art through Natalie's eyes. Small restaurants in neighborhoods he'd never explored. A Broadway show that made them both cry. Simple moments that felt more valuable than any business deal. The physical side of their relationship progressed slowly. Natalie's inexperience made her nervous, and Jason was patient, content to let her set the pace. They kissed often, held each other, learned the geography of comfort and desire. But Jason never pushed for more. One evening, after returning from a charity dinner where they'd been the picture of a happy couple, actually being happy this time, Natalie took Jason's hand and led him to his bedroom. "Natalie," he said gently, "we don't have to rush anything." "I'm not rushing. I'm ready." She looked up at him, no fear in her eyes now, only trust. "I love you, and I want this to be with you." "Are you absolutely certain?" "Jason, I've been certain for weeks. I was just nervous. But I'm not anymore. I trust you completely." What happened between them that night was tender and profound. Jason treated her like something precious, guiding her through new sensations with patience and care. And when they finally came together completely, Natalie understood why people wrote poetry about this connection. It wasn't just physical. It was the merging of two souls who'd found each other against impossible odds. Afterward, wrapped in Jason's arms, Natalie traced patterns on his chest. "Thank you for being patient with me. Thank you for trusting me with something so important." He kissed the top of her head. "I love you more than I knew it was possible to love someone. Even though we started with a contract, especially because we started with a contract, it means we chose each other despite logic, despite planning. We couldn't help falling in love. That's the most genuine thing in the world. It's the real wedding 3 months after burning the contract." Jason took Natalie back to the spot in Central Park where they'd had their breakthrough conversation. The trees were changing colors, autumn painting the world in gold and crimson. "Remember this place?" he asked, of course. "This is where we stopped pretending." Jason dropped to one knee, and Natalie's breath caught. "I know we're already legally married, but I want to do this right. Natalie Foster Bennett, you are the most incredible person I've ever known. You made me believe in love when I'd given up on it. You showed me that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's strength. Will you marry me again? For real this time? With vows we write ourselves. With your mother present, with all the romance and celebration you deserve. Tears streamed down Natalie's face as he opened a small box revealing a stunning engagement ring, a sapphire surrounded by diamonds. "It's blue like your eyes," she managed through tears. "So is that a yes?" "Yes, 1,000 times yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger. They kissed as joggers and tourists stopped to applaud, strangers celebrating their love. The real wedding took place 2 months later in the same garden where they'd married originally at City Hall. But this time, everything was different. White roses everywhere, Natalie in a beautiful gown her mother had helped her choose. Jason in a perfect tuxedo, but with eyes only for his bride. Helen sat in the front row, crying happy tears, healthy and vibrant. Raymond Pierce was there too, genuinely smiling as he watched his initially cold arrangement transform into something beautiful. "I never thought I'd say this," Raymond told them at the reception. "That you two proved me wrong about contracts being better than love." "Love is always better," Natalie said, holding Jason's hand. "We just needed a contract to find it,"